Time is a precious commodity, and every moment spent frivolously can slip away like grains of sand through your fingers. At the heart of this tale is Sally, a devoted waitress at the roadside diner, who found herself caught between the demands of her job and a pressing act of compassion. When an elderly woman, her face etched with concern and vulnerability, approached Sally seeking assistance, the young waitress chose to offer her help. Little did she know that this seemingly small act of kindness would lead her into a storm of trouble as she faced the furious displeasure of her manager. But then, a surprising twist unfolded, altering the course of events unexpectedly and profoundly. I am thrilled to share with you a new story that promises to stir your emotions and captivate your imagination. So, without further delay, let's dive into the narrative. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. The day began with the familiar, somewhat rusty creak of the heavy diner door, marking the start of another bustling day at the legendary roadside diner. This cherished establishment, which had long been a haven for weary travelers along the highway, had a charm that resonated through the air. Amid the shelves lined with snacks, essentials, and quirky trucker memorabilia, Sally moved with the effortless grace of someone who had honed her craft over many years, despite her relatively short tenure at the diner. She had already endeared herself to the regulars, predominantly truckers, each of whom found solace and camaraderie at her table. There was Tom, who entertained with his endearing bad jokes Bill, whose tales about his grandchildren brought smiles, and countless others who looked forward to the warmth Sally provided. Mr. Peters, the owner of the diner, was a rugged man whose hands bore the rough texture of years of hard work. Despite his gruff exterior and the worn baseball cap that shaded his eyes, his heart was as warm as the coffee he served. Having transformed what was once a modest pie stand into a beloved diner, Mr. Peters had decorated the walls with photos that chronicled the evolution of friendships forged over the years. Yet recently, a shadow of concern had settled on his weathered face, a tightness around his mouth betraying his anxiety. That particular morning, he had summoned the diner staff for a crucial announcement, flanked by a young man whose posture and challenging gaze hinted at significant changes on the horizon. "Hello everyone, Mr. Peters began, his voice resonating with the depth and wisdom of a lifetime spent in the service of others. The familiar, weathered tones of his speech carried an air of gravitas, imbued with the countless experiences that had shaped him over the years. I promise I won't take up much of your time, but I do have an important announcement to share with you all. For quite some time now, I've been postponing my retirement, hesitant to let go of this beloved establishment that has been my life's work. But the moment has come for me to step aside and pass the baton to the next generation." A palpable murmur of surprise rippled through the room as the employees exchanged looks of astonishment. They had long been accustomed to Mr. Peters' steadfast presence, and the prospect of his departure signaled a profound shift in their familiar routine. With a mixture of pride and nostalgia, Mr. Peters continued, a wistful smile touching his lips, "I am announcing that effective immediately, my nephew Mark will be taking over as the new manager of this diner. I have complete faith in his ability to carry forward the same dedication and passion that have defined my years here. Mark is eager and capable, and I believe he will continue to uphold the values that have made this diner a special place for so many." Mark, who recently graduated from a prestigious business school, stood with a proud, almost victorious smile on his face. The transition marked not just a professional advancement but a personal triumph. "Don't worry, Mr. Peters added, placing a supportive hand on Mark's shoulder, his gesture a symbol of trust and affection. "I will still be around to offer guidance and support whenever it's needed. But from this day forward, you will all report directly to Mark. His departure from daily operations would undoubtedly leave a void, but the natural progression of time demanded change. And it was now Mark's turn to lead. The room's atmosphere was charged with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty as the employees turned their attention to the new manager, wondering if he would honor the legacy of his esteemed uncle. As Mark began to settle into his role, it soon became glaringly clear that his management style diverged significantly from the warm, personal touch that Mr. Peters had always championed. The diner, which had once been a sanctuary where truckers and travelers felt embraced like family, was now viewed through Mark's more pragmatic lens. For him, the priority was customer throughput and operational efficiency, metrics that were paramount in his business school training. Sally, a seasoned waitress whose dedication had won the hearts of many regulars, found herself grappling with this shift. She struggled to keep her growing frustration in check. The new, high-tech touchscreen system that Mark had implemented, while sleek and modern, did little to enhance the personal touch that had been the hallmark of their service. Was Tom's coffee getting to his table any quicker? The older drivers, who once sought not just a meal but also a genuine connection and a moment of camaraderie, now found themselves in a sterile, rushed environment. The heartfelt exchanges and warm conversations that had characterized their visits were being replaced by a cold, transactional atmosphere. To Mark, every minute spent on what he deemed unnecessary conversation was a lost opportunity, time that could be spent increasing profits and efficiency. The transformation of the diner under Mark's new management was stark. The cozy, welcoming ambience that had been a refuge for so many was now overshadowed by a relentless focus on efficiency and productivity. As the days passed, the shift became more apparent, and the once familiar charm of the roadside diner began to fade, replaced by a brisk and impersonal atmosphere that left many wondering if they had lost something truly special. In the wake of these changes, Sally and her colleagues were left to navigate this new reality, grappling with the bittersweet transition from the cherished past to an uncertain future. They could only hope that amid this transformation, the essence of what had made the diner a beloved institution would somehow endure. The once warm and inviting atmosphere of the diner, which had been a sanctuary for so many over the years, was slowly giving way to a cold, impersonal ambience. The familiar charm that had made the roadside diner a cherished stop for countless weary travelers was now overshadowed by an air of indifference. For many of the older truckers who frequented the diner, the experience had been about more than just a meal. They had cherished the moments spent with Sally, sharing stories of their lives, venting their frustrations about grueling long hauls, discussing mechanical troubles, or simply seeking a brief respite from the solitude of the road. Sally had always listened with genuine empathy, understanding that these conversations were more than just idle chatter. They were lifelines to connection and understanding. But under Mark's new regime, this personal touch was being systematically erased. The once lively conversations were now replaced with a sterile, transactional atmosphere. Sally felt a deep sense of discomfort as she witnessed the subtle erosion of the human connections that had been the heartbeat of the diner. Ignoring the customer's need for a friendly ear felt profoundly wrong to her, especially when she saw the tired, yearning eyes of those who sought more than just a quick cup of coffee. One day, Mark's stern, businesslike voice cut through the diner's usual hum. "Sally, I need to talk to you." "Come to my office, please," he commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. As she walked into his office, she found him engrossed in his computer screen, barely acknowledging her presence. "Sally." He began abruptly, without any preamble or pleasantries. "I'll be straightforward with you. I've reviewed your performance metrics and they're the worst among the staff. Your service times are significantly longer compared to your colleagues, despite my instructions to improve efficiency. You continue to waste time on what I consider pointless conversations with customers." Sally, feeling a surge of anxiety and desperation, attempted to explain her perspective. "Mark, every customer has a story," she began, her voice trembling slightly with emotion, but her words were abruptly interrupted. "I don't care about their stories," Mark retorted sharply, his voice cold and unyielding. "This is your final warning. If I catch you spending more time than necessary listening to these old timers, you're fired. Leaving the meeting, Sally felt a profound sense of helplessness and disillusionment. She had always been driven by more than just efficiency. She had a deeply personal reason for valuing those conversations. She vividly recalled the years spent with her grandfather, a trucker himself, who had been an integral part of her life until he passed away a few years ago. A chance encounter with a kind stranger at the diner had changed everything for him. This stranger, another trucker passing through, had noticed early signs of diabetes and had gently encouraged Sally's grandfather to seek medical advice. That simple, compassionate act had led to early detection and treatment of the disease, vastly improving her grandfather's quality of life. For Sally, every story shared at the diner represented a potential opportunity to make a difference, just as that kind stranger had for her grandfather. She saw herself in the position to offer a listening ear and perhaps provide guidance or support that could profoundly impact someone's life. But now, faced with Mark's ultimatum, she was torn between adhering to the new, impersonal directives and staying true to the compassionate approach that had always guided her. The weight of her predicament pressed heavily on her shoulders as she grappled with the clash between efficiency and empathy, and the challenge of reconciling her values with the harsh demands of her new boss. Sally soon faced the ultimate test, a heart-wrenching dilemma between following her compassionate convictions and adhering to Mark's stringent directives. The diner was abuzz with activity on one particularly hectic afternoon, the clamor of conversations and the clinking of cutlery creating a backdrop of chaos. Amidst this commotion, an elderly woman shuffled in, her face etched with worry and confusion. "Honey, could you help me with this tire pressure gauge?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety as she fumbled with her purse. "I'm a bit flustered. My son usually takes care of these things for me, but he's out on a long haul this month, and I completely forgot to mention that my tires were getting low." The diner, known for its small automotive corner stocked with essentials for those unexpected road repairs, suddenly felt like a haven of hope for the distressed woman. Sally could feel the pressure of Mark's stern gaze on her back, his unspoken command for efficiency weighing heavily in the air. Despite the risk of facing Mark's disapproval, Sally's innate desire to help the elderly woman took precedence over her fear of reprimand. The woman continued, her voice softening with a hint of nostalgia. "You know, dear, I've been coming here for years, but since my son usually handles all these errands, I don't know you. Is Mr. Peter still running the place? He and his wife were such dear friends of mine." Sally's heart ached with the weight of nostalgia and change. "I'm sorry to say, Mom, but Mr. Peters is retired now," she explained gently, her voice carrying the sadness of a beloved chapter closing. As Sally guided the woman towards the automotive section, she could feel Mark's frustration growing more palpable. His scowl deepened with every step she took away from the bustling counter, his impatience clear as day. But Sally's focus remained on the elderly woman, whose distress seemed to grow with each passing second. Upon reaching the automotive corner, the woman's demeanor shifted from hopeful to anxious. She began frantically rummaging through her purse, her hands trembling with worry. "Oh no," she said, her voice quivering. "I can't seem to find my wallet. I must have left it at home." Her eyes filled with embarrassment and sorrow. "It looks like I won't be able to get this today." Sally's heart broke at the sight of the woman's helplessness. The thought of this kind, an elderly woman leaving empty-handed, burdened by the weight of her forgetfulness and the busy afternoon's chaos, filled Sally with a deep sense of compassion. At that moment, she was faced with a decision that transcended mere compliance with new management policies. It was a choice between her duty to uphold Mark's rigid standards and her commitment to the human connection that had always defined her role. With a mixture of resolve and empathy, Sally made her choice. She knew that in this moment of need, her values were clear. She would help this woman, regardless of the consequences. The look of relief, that flickered in the woman's eyes as Sally took her hand and offered to cover the cost of the gauge was worth more to Sally than any reprimand from Mark. As she walked the woman back to her car, Sally felt a renewed sense of purpose. She understood that while change was inevitable, the essence of kindness and genuine care was something that should never be compromised, no matter the cost. Sally felt the gravity of the moment pressing down on her. She knew that the elderly woman's safety depended on having her tires properly inflated, especially for her long journey ahead. With a determined yet gentle smile, she decided to act on her compassion. "I have an idea," Sally said, her voice warm and reassuring. "Don't worry about the cost today. The tire gauge is on the house, and I'll personally make sure one of the guys checks your tires before you leave." The elderly woman's face brightened with a genuine smile, a look of profound relief and gratitude washing over her. "Oh, how kind of you, dear," she said, her voice quivering with emotion. "I'll be sure to tell Mr. Peters what a wonderful employee he has when I see him." With a grateful wave and a heart full of appreciation, the woman left the diner. She walked away not just with the much-needed tire gauge, but also with a comforting memory of someone's kindness in a world that often felt indifferent. Sally watched her leave, feeling a sense of fulfillment and pride in her decision. It wasn't long before Mark appeared, his face a storm cloud of displeasure. His footsteps were heavy with authority as he approached Sally, his expression severe and unyielding. "Sally," he began, his voice cutting through the air like a blade, "we need to talk." The tension in the air was palpable as Sally braced herself for what was to come. She had acted out of a deep sense of empathy and responsibility, but she knew that her choice had set the stage for a confrontation with Mark, who viewed the situation through a lens of pure efficiency. "Time is money, and you're wasting both." Mark's voice dripped with frustration and condemnation. "When an elderly woman approached you, you chose to help her, which I commend in spirit but not in practice. Your act of kindness has cost us time and money, something we cannot afford to overlook." Sally's heart sank as she prepared to defend her actions. She had chosen to honor the human connection that had always been the soul of the diner, but she also understood the price of doing so in the face of Mark's relentless focus on efficiency and profit. "Let me be clear," Mark continued, his gaze unwavering. "If you continue to let personal interactions interfere with your efficiency, there will be consequences. We need to prioritize the operational standards I've set, and that means no more distractions." Sally nodded, feeling the weight of the situation and the sting of Mark's words. As the manager's harsh words echoed in her mind, she knew that her compassionate approach was at odds with the new priorities of the diner. Hi everyone, welcome to Tales Unveiled. Today I'm excited to share a new story with you. Let's get started. The heavy, slightly rusted door of the roadside diner groaned open, heralding the start of yet another bustling day at the beloved establishment. For decades, this diner had stood as a beacon of comfort and nourishment for weary travelers traversing the long stretch of highway. Inside, the shelves overflowed with an eclectic mix of snacks, essential items, and quirky trucker memorabilia, each piece adding to the diner's charm. Sally moved through the space with the effortless grace of someone who had been a waitress for far longer than her brief tenure. Though she had only recently joined the team, Sally had already endeared herself to the regulars, chiefly truckers, who had become fixtures in the diner. There was Tom, known for his endless supply of corny jokes, and Bill, whose stories of his grandkids were as rich and heartwarming as the meals served. For these travelers, Sally's presence was a source of comfort, a fleeting respite from the solitude of the road. Mr. Peters, the stalwart owner of the diner, was a man of rugged exterior with hands worn and rough as sandpaper. Yet beneath that weathered visage and the faded baseball cap he always wore, there was a heart brimming with kindness. He had transformed this humble pie stand into a cherished diner over the years, and the walls of the establishment bore testament to his journey, adorned with photos of patrons who had become friends. Recently, however, the lines of worry had deepened around his eyes, his once jovial smile now tinged with a hint of unease. That morning, Mr. Peters had called a staff meeting, a rare occurrence that immediately piqued the curiosity of everyone present. As the staff gathered, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Beside Mr. Peters stood a young man with an air of self-assuredness, his stance radiating both pride and a hint of challenge. "Good morning, everyone," Mr. Peters began, his voice carrying the weight of countless experiences and the unspoken stories of the diner. "I'll keep this brief. I've been putting off my retirement for quite some time, but the moment has finally arrived for me to pass the torch." A ripple of surprised glances was exchanged among the employees. Uncertainty buzzed in the air as they awaited further details about the future of the diner. With a mix of nostalgia and pride, Mr. Peters continued, his voice softening slightly. "I'd like to announce that my nephew Mark will be taking over the management of the diner from today. I have absolute faith in his capabilities and believe he will bring the same level of dedication and enthusiasm to this place that I have for all these years." The announcement hung in the air, and the staff couldn't help but feel a mix of trepidation and curiosity. The familiar rhythm of their daily routines was about to shift with the arrival of a new leader, and as they looked at Mark, who stood with a confident, almost challenging demeanor, they wondered how the diner's cherished traditions and their roles would evolve under his leadership. Mark, newly minted from a prestigious city business school, could barely conceal the triumphant smirk spreading across his face. His confidence was palpable as he prepared to take over the reins of the diner. Mr. Peters, standing beside him, placed a reassuring hand on his nephew's shoulder, a gesture that spoke volumes of trust and warmth. "I'll still be around, Mr. Peters assured the staff, his voice imbued with both authority and affection. "I'll offer guidance and support whenever necessary. But from this point forward, you'll be reporting to Mark." The announcement marked a significant turning point for the diner. The comfort of Mr. Peters' familiar presence would be missed, but change was inevitable, and the diner was on the cusp of a new chapter. All eyes were now fixed on Mark, the new manager, as everyone hoped he would uphold the cherished legacy of his uncle. As Mark assumed his new role, it quickly became clear that his approach diverged sharply from his uncle's philosophy. The diner had always been more than just a place to grab a meal. It was a sanctuary where truckers felt welcomed and valued. Mark, however, viewed the diner through a more pragmatic lens. To him, success hinged on customer flow and operational efficiency. Sally found herself biting her tongue more often as Mark implemented changes that seemed to undermine the diner's long-standing spirit. The new touchscreen system he installed was sleek and modern, but Sally couldn't help but wonder if it truly expedited service, especially when it came to the simple, yet meaningful, task of getting Tom's coffee to his table. The atmosphere that had once been imbued with warmth and personal connection now seemed to give way to a cold, impersonal efficiency. The seasoned truckers who had frequented the diner for years were accustomed to more than just quick service. They valued the genuine human interactions that accompanied their meals. Sally had always taken time to listen to their stories about their grueling long hauls, mechanical mishaps, or simply their need for a moment of companionship on their lonely journeys. These interactions were more than just pleasantries, they were lifelines, and dismissing them felt deeply wrong to Sally. She saw the weariness in their eyes, the longing for someone to acknowledge their struggles and triumphs. The once familiar environment, where every customer felt like family, had started to shift toward a realm of impersonal efficiency. Sally's heart ached as she watched the essence of what made the diner special slowly erode. For her, the personal connections she fostered with each customer were not just part of the job, they were a crucial aspect of why she loved working there. As Mark's relentless focus on productivity clashed with the diner's tradition of warmth and personal touch, Sally found herself caught between the demands of her new boss and the cherished values that had defined the diner for so many years. "Sally, I need to talk to you." "Come to my office, please," Mark's voice rang out, curt and impersonal. As Sally entered the office, Mark's attention was riveted on his computer screen, his gaze unyielding and detached. His demeanor was a stark contrast to the warm, familiar environment she was accustomed to. "Sally, let's get straight to the point," he said, his tone brisk and businesslike. "I've reviewed your performance metrics, and they're the lowest among the staff. Your service times are significantly longer than those of your colleagues, despite my attempts to guide you toward more efficient practices. You continue to waste time with what I consider pointless conversations with customers." Sally tried to defend herself, her voice tinged with desperation. "Mark, every customer has a story. They just want someone to listen," she began, but her attempt to explain was abruptly cut off. "I don't care about their stories," Mark snapped, his words sharp and unyielding. "This is your final warning. If I catch you wasting time on these old-timers' ramblings again, you're out of here." The weight of Mark's ultimatum pressed heavily on Sally as she left the office, feeling a profound sense of helplessness and being deeply misunderstood. Her role had always extended beyond mere service. It was about connection, understanding, and compassion. Sally's heart ached, knowing that her willingness to listen was not just a job requirement but a personal commitment born from her own experiences. She thought back to her grandfather, a beloved trucker who had passed away a few years earlier. He had been a regular at the diner, his life woven into the fabric of its community. It was a compassionate stranger, another trucker passing through the diner, who had once noticed subtle signs of diabetes in her grandfather. This unexpected kindness prompted Sally's grandfather to seek medical advice, leading to early detection and effective treatment that profoundly improved his quality of life. This memory was a poignant reminder of how seemingly small acts of kindness could have a significant impact. Now, Sally found herself caught between her deep-seated values and the rigid expectations of her new manager. One bustling afternoon, the diner was packed with the usual lunchtime crowd when an elderly woman approached Sally, her anxiety palpable. "Honey, could you help me with this tire pressure gauge?" she asked, her hands trembling as she fumbled with her purse. "I'm a bit confused. My son usually handles these things, but he's on a long haul this month, and I completely forgot to mention that my tires were getting low." The diner featured a modest section dedicated to automotive necessities, a practical touch for the many travelers who passed through. As Sally listened to the woman's plight, she could almost feel Mark's piercing gaze on her, the pressure to adhere to his efficiency standards weighing heavily on her shoulders. Yet, despite the looming threat of reprimand, Sally's empathy for the elderly woman and her obvious need for assistance overcame her fears. "You know, I've been a regular here forever," the woman continued, her voice soft with nostalgia and worry. "But with my son usually handling these things, I don't recognize you. Is Mr. Peters still running this place? He and his wife were such good friends of mine." Sally's heart sank as she answered, "Sadly, Mr. Peters has retired." She glanced over her shoulder to see Mark approaching, his expression increasingly stern. As she guided the woman to the automotive section, she could feel the tension in the air, the pressure of Mark's disapproval weighing heavily on her. Upon reaching the small section stocked with automotive necessities, the elderly woman began frantically rummaging through her purse. Her voice wavered as she said, "Can't seem to find my wallet. I must have left it at home. Looks like I won't be able to get this today." Sally's heart ached for the woman. She understood the urgency of having properly inflated tires, especially for someone who relied on her vehicle for safety on the road. "Determined to help," Sally said, her smile genuine and reassuring. "Don't worry about the cost today. The gauge is on the house. I'll make sure one of the guys checks your tires before you leave." The elderly woman's face brightened with relief and gratitude. "Oh, honey, how kind of you. As soon as I see Mr. Peters, I'll be sure to tell him what a wonderful employee he has." With a thankful wave, She left the diner, carrying not just the tire gauge but also the warmth of Sally's kindness. It wasn't long before Mark stormed over, his face dark with anger. "Sally, I warned you," he began, his tone cutting through the din of the busy diner. "Not only did you take too long with that lady, but you also gave away merchandise. Are we running a charity here?" His eyes were cold, unyielding. "I'll be deducting the cost of that gauge from your paycheck." Sally tried to respond, but Mark's face was set in a stony mask of determination. "Pack your things. You're fired," he declared, his voice devoid of empathy or warmth. The words hit Sally like a physical blow. She stood there, stunned, as a wave of conflicting emotions washed over her: shock, sadness, and a deep sense of injustice. She had acted from a place of genuine compassion, trying to help someone in need, only to find herself losing her job over it. The diner, once a place of community and connection, now seemed like a stark, cold space where personal values clashed with rigid efficiency. Sally grappled with the painful realization that sometimes doing the right thing comes at a high price. As she packed her belongings, the weight of her decision lingered heavy on her heart. Was it truly worth it to stand by her principles, only to face such a harsh consequence? However, the story held an unexpected twist. Just 30 minutes after her abrupt dismissal, Mr. Peters arrived at the diner, a look of confusion on his weathered face. "Where's Sally?" he asked, scanning the bustling diner for her familiar figure. Mark, with a trace of smugness in his demeanor, informed his uncle that he had just fired Sally. She was inefficient and unprofessional, Mark explained, clearly relishing the opportunity to justify his actions. Mr. Peters's face paled as he listened. Just then, a younger waitress, her face flushed with concern, interrupted. "A call just came in on the diner phone," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It was a woman. She said she was a friend of yours and wanted to speak urgently." Mr. Peters took the phone, his brow furrowing as he listened. As he hung up, his expression shifted from confusion to profound disappointment. "That was my wife," he said, his voice holding a steely edge. "She just got off the phone with that elderly woman you turned away. Sally was the picture of kindness, the kind of service that has made this diner what it is today. You tell me you just fired her for doing her job right. Seems to me you don't understand the spirit of this place, Mr. Peters said, his disappointment palpable. "Unfortunately, Mark, I think I made a mistake trusting you here." Without hesitation, Mr. Peters picked up the phone and called Sally, who was still reeling from her abrupt dismissal. When she answered, her voice was tentative. "Hello, Sally. This is Mr. Peters," he began, his tone warm and earnest. "I want to apologize for the way things ended. I've realized that you embody the values that are central to this diner. Mark no longer works here. I'd like you to come back. I'm offering you the position of manager. Would you consider taking over?" Sally's heart raced as tears welled up in her eyes. The disbelief of the past hour gave way to a wave of overwhelming emotion. Here she was, unexpectedly presented with an opportunity to lead the place she had grown to love deeply. With a voice choked with gratitude and emotion, she replied, "Mr. Peters, I would be honored." As she walked back into the diner, the familiar, comforting environment now felt even more like home. The warmth of the place, coupled with the respect and trust of Mr. Peters, infused her with a renewed sense of purpose and hope. She was ready to embrace her new role, determined to uphold the values that had made the diner a cherished haven for so many. Sally's genuine compassion turned out to be a breath of fresh air for the roadside diner. Though her kind gesture toward the elderly woman initially cost her her job, it ultimately opened a door she had never imagined. This experience was a powerful reminder that even when acts of kindness seem to go unnoticed, their positive impact can ripple outward in unexpected ways. Sally understood that running the diner was about much more than just efficiency and profit. It was about creating a haven where weary travelers could find not only a hot meal but also a listening ear and a sense of community along the road. It was a legacy she was determined to honor and preserve. In the weeks that followed, the diner underwent a remarkable transformation. The sleek, modern touchscreens that Mark had insisted on were removed, replaced by the warmth and familiarity of handwritten menus. Sally took the time to learn the names of the truckers, remember their usual orders, and engage them in meaningful conversations about their long journeys. She made an effort to ask about their trips, their families, and any challenges they had faced. This personal touch was a far cry from the impersonal service that had taken over under Mark's management. Word spread quickly along the highways. The old regulars began returning, joined by newcomers who had heard about the diner's return to its roots. Sally's dedication to providing a personal touch and creating a welcoming atmosphere brought back the spirit of the diner that had been missing. It wasn't long before the diner was bustling with the familiar hum of contented chatter and the clinking of dishes. Mr. Peters, now back at the diner's counter rather than behind a desk, became a beloved fixture once again. He shared stories from the early days of the diner, reminiscing with the truckers about old times and adding to the sense of community that had always been a hallmark of the place. The bulletin board behind the cash register, which had once been a vibrant tapestry of snapshots, notes, and trucker poetry, began to fill up once more. It was covered with pictures of happy customers, handwritten thank you notes from travelers, and messages of support. Sally made sure the board was always up to date, a living testament to the connections and friendships forged within the diner's walls. The diner's renewed focus on genuine service and community started to show in more than just the atmosphere. Business improved significantly, not merely through increased foot traffic, but through the deeper connections Sally had fostered. The stories shared, the friendships rekindled, and the kindness extended became the true measure of success. Sally had managed to recapture the essence of what made the diner special, transforming it from a place of impersonal transactions into a home away from home for those on the road. Sally's journey was a testament to the power of sticking to one's values and the impact that a single act of kindness can have. Her story became an inspiration, showing that the heart of a business can be its greatest asset. Even when faced with challenges and setbacks, staying true to one's principles and treating others with compassion can lead to unexpected and rewarding outcomes. As we wrap up this heartwarming tale, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've witnessed. Sally's story reminds us of the profound impact that compassion and genuine kindness can have, not just on individuals but on entire communities. Even when faced with challenges, staying true to our values and embracing the spirit of service can lead to unexpected and rewarding outcomes. So, what have you learned from Sally's experience? How will you apply these lessons in your own life? We'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments below one thing you've learned from this story and how you plan to bring it into practice. If you enjoyed this video and found it inspiring, please leave your comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you more uplifting and thought-provoking content. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, keep spreading kindness and making a difference in the world.